What are your thoughts on the institution of monarchy in the modern world?
And the question, I guess the question there would be, this may have been inspired by the
royal
wedding,
wedding?
the wedding. That's a difficult question. I think that monarchy, there is such a thing as a constitutional monarchy where you simply have the monarch is the executive, and you have a particular way of choosing who your executive will be. I have no principial problem with a constitutional monarchy at all. Mm-hmm. The divine right of kings kind of monarchy, I think, is simply an absurd statist claim that was false on its own terms in its own time. Mm-hmm. So the Bible does not defend any kind of despotism, including the despotism of kings. Constitutional monarchs are fine. Figurehead monarchs are something,
good for tourism.
good for tourism, and good for sort of romantic wish projection sorts of things. And there is a societal role, a societal glue that is that's involved. But there it's functioning sort of like a flag does, mm-hmm. And at some point you might say that's an awfully expensive flag,
right.
Keeping that apparatus going. But if I were an Englishman, I would not want to abolish the monarchy, because I think it's involved in too many things. I think the whole warp and woof of their society is connected to it.
Can you give just the briefest of definitions of what exactly a constitutional monarchy would look like?
Sure. A constitutional monarchy would be like what we have, only the president doesn't serve 4 terms; he serves for life.
Okay.
And you've got the executive power would rest with the monarch, mm-hmm. but you would have a Congress you'd have houses, a House of Parliament, a legislative body, and you would have judges. Mm-hmm. So a constitutional monarchy could easily have the 3 branches of government
right.
that we have. Only the executive office is one you can inherit.
Okay, and then when you go back to the Saul being crowned and the sort of the sinful desire of Israel to have a king like other nations,
right?
How would what does it look like to want that sort of thing sinfully, and what would it look like to want it?
Well, the problem, Deuteronomy presupposed that there was going to be a king, mm-hmm. right? And so I don't think the problem was Israel wanted a king. The problem was that they wanted a king like the other nations. And when Samuel warns the people of Israel against a king, he is warning them against what a king like the other nations' king would do. Conscript your sons and daughters, and take up to 10% of your income, and all of that sort of thing. So Samuel is cautioning against a despotic monarchy, not a monarchy per se. And of course, I am happy with our system. I'm happy with constitutional republicanism. I don't think you need a monarchy, but I think it's quite striking that in this republic of ours, the president has taken on many of the trappings of mm-hmm. a monarch. We've got a monarch with term limits.
Right, but in a funny way, it's not as if our presidents aren't in a sort of, it's a little bit broader than the hereditary pool that an English monarch might get to
right.
come up from. But here we've got a series of Bushes, we've got Bill Clinton, and now Hillary is poised. There are certain families that are clearly vested with political control.
Yeah, or there are certain families, certain people, certain kinds of people who are always near the center mm-hmm. of action, and whatever the system is, they'll figure out a way to be close to the center, right? The other, I'll just one thing I should point out, that the current American president has far more executive authority than George III ever dreamt of having, And so you can't just reduce it to a calculus of how much power.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if the monarchy versus a constitutional Republican president, in some ways reduces to a rhetorical or a stylistic difference.
Mm-hmm. But there does seem to be a difference, though, with granted that we've got certain families are connected to power here. At the same time, you can in 4 years throw the bum out,
Yes.
as opposed to it would take far more if you had a monarch to move him along.
That is true. And generally, when you move a monarch along, it's rougher, as with Charles I. But the Bloodless Revolution in 1688 was probably notable by its exceptionalism and how they were able to squeeze a monarch out and bring another one in.